Hey, this is Christian Roldan,
and Jordan Morris from the Seattle Sounders Football Club.
and you're listening to
This is Nos Audietis. This episode of Nos Audietis is sponsored by Full Pull Wines, a Seattle-based wine retailer and proud sponsor of Nos Audietis since 2011. Full Pull was founded in 2009, is based in Seattle, and is owned and operated by longtime Sounders supporters. They offer the best boutique wines of the world to members of their mailing list, with special focus on their home, the Pacific Northwest.
Here we go. Come on! Hey, O'Shan! Let's go!
Save by Fry! The Seattle Sounders have done it! MLS Cup winners!
Here comes Rui Diaz through the middle to crown it for Seattle. And now they truly can start the celebrations. It's the Sounders MLS Cup.
Nico Lodero leaves absolutely no doubt! The Sounders rule the region!
Seattle Sounders is going good.
They've scored! They've scored! Finally!
This feels fucking awesome.
This is a tiny dog.
Is that what you young people call twerking?
And Porter says cheated.
You wanna win? This is the Seattle Sounders, bro.
Welcome back to another episode of Nos Audietis. I am Jeremiah O'Shan. Joining me today to talk about tomorrow's game with the LA Galaxy is Alex Ruiz of Galactic Tribune. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Hey, Jeremiah. Thanks a lot for having me.
So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the project that you have going on right now. Galactic Tribune, you were at the Striker. How are things going with Galactic Tribune?
Yeah, really good. Obviously it sucked with what happened with the Striker, but I'm here with the Galactic Tribune, providing the coverage, the analysis, everything needed to stay in the know of what's going on in LA Galaxy world. Definitely been a up and down season, both on and off the field. So, there's been a lot of different stories, commentary and analysis going on there. So for LA Galaxy fans and those who just want to keep up on the team, definitely subscribe at Galactic Tribune. It's a Substack newsletter.
Nice. Well, let's start with the off the field stuff. It's been, like you said, kind of a wild year around the Galaxy. It started with people clamoring to get Chris Klein out. They end up getting him out after a pretty bad start to the season. And I guess I know the season has sort of turned around a bit since then. But what is the mood around the team these days? Is it actually gotten better since Klein was fired?
Yeah, I think off the field definitely has much improved. There was fan boycotts going on at the start of the season. Attendance wasn't doing so well at Dignity Health Sports Park, but since he's been gone, we've kind of seen that go away. On the field, though, however, it feels like this club is on their last strings. They've dealt with so many injuries, season-ending injuries to key players like Chicharito Hernandez, Martin Cáceres, Gaston Brugman. Jalen Neal's likely out for the rest of the regular season. And they've had to rely on a lot of new summer signings to really step up and just plug and play those guys in. And so far, they've done a decent job, but it's just not enough for this team to be consistent and get 3 points every single week.
Yeah, so they the latest injury is to Ricky Puig, who I guess has an ankle injury. Everything I've seen seems to say that he's almost certainly going to miss this game, but he's potential for the weekend.
Yeah, so this injury is more or less a discomfort injury. He has a huge swelling in his ankle that's bothered him since last week or a couple weeks ago against Austin. That's really what kind of saw him not get as much playing time anymore. And look, this isn't a muscular injury, something that's necessarily too scary type injury to talk about, but something the Galaxy don't want to risk and aggravating even more. I mean, Puig is essentially what's giving this Galaxy team hope to make the playoffs. They still have a chance, surprisingly. And look, that midfield, they desperately need Ricky Puig because he's that creative engine, the guy who's able to beat players one-on-one on the dribble. He's a very special player. So not having him against the Sounders is going to be a huge loss for the LA Galaxy.
So you went through a rather impressive list of injured players this year, and yet the Galaxy do seem to keep getting results. They're scoring a ton of goals. What is behind their offensive spark here?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're scoring a lot of goals, and one of the signings that I kind of alluded to earlier talked about was Billy Sharp. He's really taking the reins as being the striker. The Galaxy have been really bad from the number 9 season all year long. Even Chicharito, when he was healthy, wasn't good at all. Dejan Joveljic has just nosedived and regressed in how he's played, especially as a starter. So now Billy Sharp, he's been scoring goals for the Galaxy. He's a guy who provides danger. He's a poacher. He's a guy who isn't necessarily going to be very much involved in the buildup, but you have to be aware of where he is at all times because he's willing to put his body on the line. I remember his first game coming off the bench against Chicago. He goes after a cross and just body slams himself onto the post. So he's that type of striker who's willing to put everything on the line to get that ball over the back of the net.
And then the other player who seems to have come on seemingly out of nowhere is Douglas Costa, a player who at one point looked like one of the bigger busts in MLS history. And he's looked like look, against Portland, he was maybe the best player. I mean, he only played 57 minutes, but he was absolutely dynamic in that game.
Yeah, he's a different player now. My colleague Josh Gessman from Corner of the Galaxy, we started nicknaming him Doug, because this is just a completely different person. I mean, he's so much more involved in the play. You can tell that he's not the same player he was, 5-7 years ago where he was at Bayern Munich running down the wing all the time. But he very much puts in a good shift offensively. And without Ricky Puig, I mean, he was the guy pulling the strings for the LA Galaxy attack. I mean, after he left in the 58th minute, the Galaxy didn't record a single shot against the Portland Timbers. So you can kind of see how dependent they are on him now with Puig out. But against the Sounders, if I remember, he scored his first MLS goal that deflected free kick into the back of the net. So I'm looking forward to see if Douglas Costa can continue this form. Obviously, in Galaxy Land, there's a whole discussion on whether he should be renewed or not, which is something that definitely can be a podcast episode on its own. But right now, Douglas Costa is in very good form and very much needed for the LA Galaxy. Without Ricky Puig, Douglas Costa is that creative outlet. I think he led the team with 4 chances created in 58 minutes. So he's very much the guy that Seattle is going to need to keep their eye on. And the Galaxy are going to be feeding a lot during this game.
So one of the other there's been a few additions since the Sounders last played the Galaxy. You mentioned Billy Sharp. There's the Japanese center back, right?
Yeah, Maya Yoshida, he's been huge. I mean, he's a guy who, even when we talk to him in post-game press conference, you can feel the command that he has in a room. Like, he's a guy who is a leader. He's a veteran. He's played over 10 years in Europe in the top divisions. He's a guy who knows what to do, how to play out of the back in the system, which is, the guys like to do. They love to play from out of the back. And in general, he's just a guy who's going to win a lot of aerial duels. So, and that's been a department where the Galaxy have struggled, where aerially they're not as dominant as they used to be in seasons previous. But yeah, he's definitely given them a spark, leadership, and, someone that can organize the back line despite them being very bad lately.
The other big addition, Diego Fagundes, who a player Sounders fan should know well, both with Austin and before that New England. How has Fagundes fit into this team?
Yeah, Fagundes is such an interesting player because he's had 3 assists and a goal in his time since, leaving from Austin, coming here to LA. But at the same time, it feels like he doesn't necessarily have the grasp of the game as much compared to Douglas Costa, where he's a catalyst offensively. Diego Fagundes isn't necessarily that. He's more of like part of the cog of the offensive machine rather than, what's running that engine. But I think he's still a player you need to keep your eye on. I think given that the Galaxy have struggled a lot at winger depth, Fagundes off the bench definitely provides a different look, a different spark, and a player with MLS pedigree who's done it for so many years now. So he's, an option for Greg Vanney to use off the bench. And, like I said earlier, the Galaxy have really struggled in the winger position since Vanney became manager. So having Diego Fagundes coming off the bench, and even Michael Barrios, a guy who was, an MLS veteran with FC Dallas and the Colorado Rapids, right? Like, he gives a different look, more direct style of play. So the Galaxy out wide have a lot more players that they can use. And, Vanney's able to use players in whichever system that he decides is best during games.
And yet another winger that they've had, another player who has seemingly come into, he's a streaky player, but Tyler Boyd does seem to be sort of on one of these hot streaks that he's been known for.
Yeah, Tyler Boyd definitely has been a huge addition for this Galaxy team. I mean, he's the guy who, he's basically what Kevin Cabral was supposed to be, if I'm being honest. A guy who's fast, pacey, can finish at times. He's had some great goals this season. And I think the thing with Tyler Boyd is, like you said, he's very inconsistent, but he provides that running, that direct threat that Greg Vanney asks and demands out of wingers all the time, to just be able to be a threat to the back line and stretch them out and that's exactly what Tyler Boyd does. Lately, he's cooled off in his form. I think he had a couple of games stretch where he had 3 goals in 3 games, a stretch like that. But lately, he's cooled off, and the thing for the Galaxy really needs is him to kind of pick up that form because when he's going, the rest of the LA Galaxy is going, and they pick up points and they pick up wins. And right now, they need wins more than ever.
Watson's Counter wants to thank everyone for their patience, but now the wait is over. Located at 6420 24th Avenue Northwest in Ballard, they've reopened in a brand new location with the same bomb-ass coffee and the same dumbass vibes. You can still expect their classics like the gochujang fried chicken sandwich and Fruity Pebbles French toast, alongside their new soft serve program and their world-class coffee. Make sure to follow them on Instagram for all the latest and greatest. So they obviously are coming off a pretty tough game at Portland over the weekend. It seemed like Galaxy just sort of ran out of gas towards the end of that game. They started well. They had a 3-2 halftime lead. And then it was really all Portland, especially after Costa went out. What is what's the mood around the team, and how is there going to have to be any rotation that the Galaxy are going to go through for this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Galaxy understand what their problem is, and that's that they can't, keep the ball. They can't possess it. They give the ball up too easily in bad spots of the field, and that's exactly what happened against Portland. That's why the Timbers were able to have so much momentum towards the end of the game. And given their injuries and how the back line has changed so much over the season, they've just really been working on trying to hone in together, get that chemistry, be able to eliminate those easy mistakes that they do, because this Galaxy team shoots themselves in the foot very often. And I think that right now this team is concentrated on just trying to go one half at a time, right? Greg Vanney's talked about, can we just have one good half and keep that going? And I think that's really, really says the state of the LA Galaxy team, is that right now they're a team that's broken on their last threads, dealing with so much player turnover and different 11s that they've had to put out, but they're still trying to organize themselves well, trying to take it step by step right now. And look, I'm just worried that this Galaxy team is just going to continue to run out of gas even more. Kind of like you mentioned in the question, this team has had a lot of pretty crazy games in the last 2 weeks. They've scored 2 goals, at least 2 goals in 11 of their last 12 games.
Right.
So this is a team that is needing to get into shootouts in order to rescue points. And that's not ideal for the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, you look at their form, and it's pretty impressive when you look at basically the last half of the season. They've only lost twice since week 15.
That was when Chris Klein got fired.
Right, exactly. So they've been on this run since Chris Klein got fired, and yet they are still very much on the outside looking into the playoffs. Is this run enough to sort of, let's just assume they fall short of the playoffs? Is that enough to really continue the trajectory that they are on, or is there some sense that there's going to have to be another reset in order to sort of get the Galaxy back?
I mean, it's interesting because we have to put everything in perspective, kind of how chaotic everything was at the start of the season, all these season-ending injuries. I mean, this team has never been able to be healthy all season. And sure, the Greg Vanney tenure hasn't necessarily been amazing. They've only made the playoffs once. It looks like they'll likely miss the playoffs again this year. But I mean, he's brought some stability to the club. Adding Will Kuntz has been huge in the front office. A lot of these trades and a lot of the roster workarounds go through him. So he's helping this roster maximize what they can get. And I think, there's nobody else right now, I think, that can fill in what the Galaxy need at the moment. I feel like Greg Vanney's built an identity with the club. He's done a lot more than just, the coaching side. He's a sporting director. He's really built up the academy. He's been able to kind of upgrade a lot of things within the club that were lacking. This was a club that was still in its MLS 2.0 era just a year ago. So, I mean, this club is advancing slowly and methodically, but I think that's the approach that the club wants to go through right now. But I will say for sure, with Greg Vanney likely being back for next season, that leash is going to be extremely short. So right now, this season, they're still fighting, still competing. You can see that out in their last couple of games. But next year, there's going to be some very high expectations that need to be filled by everybody on the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, I got to say, I don't always, I guess it depends on your perspective. These, especially the last 5 games, or the last 3 games have been each team scoring at least 3 goals. I guess that's the first time that's ever happened in MLS history where a team has been involved where they've both given up and scored 3 goals in 3 straight games. Is this been a fun team to cover, or is it been just is it almost too much?
It feels like too much. I just say it's very chaotic because, sometimes you kind of just be like, okay, maybe they can do it. Okay, maybe they can't. Like at the game against Minnesota, right, where they're down 3-1 at halftime. I'm like, okay, Minnesota has control of the pitch. They have control of
Game's
everything.
over.
Yeah, and then Billy Sharp out here with a hat trick. Everybody's contributing. Their subs were really good. That game against Austin as well was very chaotic, a 3-hour delay. And then that game is tied, right at the death. So, I mean, they do everything they can to get themselves in positions to, where you're like, oh man, you can count this team out. But somehow they surprise you. And, I'll say this. The Galaxy, whenever they're down and looking to chase a goal, they're a very dangerous team. They do not give up. They will attack relentlessly. They will do a lot of different looks to, get one shot, one chance, and one opportunity. However, if they have the lead, they struggle to defend it. They are not very good at holding on to leads, and they will have shaky ends to games. So, depending on how this game against Seattle goes, I mean, if they're winning, I'm scared because I know I can't trust this team to hold the lead. And if they're losing, for me, I won't count them out until that final whistle is blown.
Fair enough. And, we don't usually do predictions on this show. So I think I'm going to count that as the equivalent of a prediction, which is to say this is going to be probably a crazy game. And, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But it's been really good having you on, Alex. Again, it's the Galactic Tribune. It's through Substack. Go check it out. Anything else you want to? Where can people read you? You're on Twitter and where else?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at ALXR15. That's where you can find a lot of my LA Galaxy coverage. Mostly post articles, stats, interesting things, commentary. Just everything revolving around the LA Galaxy can be found on there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I am Jeremiah Oshan, signing off for Nos Audietes. We will catch you next time.
We love you. Let's win another one.